Got body roll, don't give a fuck by no. You might fuck my lord, you might call my lord. Love gon' set me up, bitch gon' set me up. Don't retaliate.
Hello guys, and welcome to the third part and probably the last part to What If Itadori Had the Rinnegan. Now the support on the second part was also pretty good, just like on the first part, so I truly appreciate that. Now once again, just like with part 2, this might be coming out late because I've been doing a lot of stuff this week. I'll try to get it out at a reasonable time, well, reasonable compared to my old upload schedule. I don't have much else to say, but make sure you guys rate this series in the comments down below, tell me your thoughts and opinions on it, and without further ado, my Discord is linked in the description below as always, and let's get into it. Alright, real quick disclaimer, there will be many Jujutsu Kaisen manga spoilers in this video, you have been warned. Now, the last place I left off, Kenjaku had brought back Kashimo, Yorozu, Toji, and Sukuna, as he needed Toji, Kashimo, and Yorozu to kill Yuji Itadori so they could get rid of one of the biggest threats. This would also inadvertently return Sukuna back to his full strength. Kenjaku was also planning to seal Gojo or kill him now that he had Sukuna. But back over with Yuji would be speeding through the forest as he was searching for the Kyoto team. As in, out of nowhere, Yuji would feel something rushing up on him fast. In fact, it was more than one person. Yuji would quickly turn around to see a woman hurtling down toward him. This is obviously Yorozu, and Yuji would jump out of the way. Yorozu would get a good look at Yuji, and she would realize how similar Yuji looked to Sukuna. Besides the 2 faces and 4 arms. She would tell Yuji that it was a shame that he had to die. Yuji would remove his sunglasses as he would develop a very serious look. This is because if he was going to fight this woman in front of him, he would have to be as serious as possible. Yuji could tell from the mass amounts of cursed energy she had, she was definitely special grade. Now, special grade cursed spirits are one thing, but special grade sorcerers are something entirely different. Special grade sorcerers don't just pop up out of the blue, as in out of nowhere from the top of the trees would come Toji, as he was swinging down the inverted spear of heaven onto Yuji. Yuji would bring up both of his hands as he would point one at Toji and one at Yorozu. Toji and Yorozu would begin to rush at Yuji, as then Yuji would say in a very low tone, "Almighty push." As the blast came toward the both of them, Toji would just narrowly get out of the way with his speed, and Yorozu, using her curse technique, would put on her insect armor. And this would allow her to tank the almighty push, as also this almighty push blasted away tons of trees, making the battlefield very open. And right about this time, Kashimo would show up and he would sit down on the outskirts of the crater as he would begin to watch this fight. As Kashimo is no fan of jumping anyone, so he will fight Yuji afterwards. But right as the smoke cleared, Yorozu and Toji were right back on Yuji. Toji, going as fast as he could, would come from below trying to swing the inverted spear of heaven at Yuji. Yuji would summon a cursed rod as he would block the first slash from Toji. Toji would come in with another one, and this one was not blocked as Yuji's cursed rod was actually broken. This did not make sense to Yuji, but he would begin to piece it together and analyze Toji and his weapon. But as he was doing that, he would jaw check Toji, sending him flying back as Yorozu would begin to blitz toward Yuji from the back. Yuji would turn around quickly, acknowledging how much faster Yorozu was now that she had this strange armor on. And this would make him fully acknowledge that she was extremely dangerous and she needed to be put down immediately, as he did not need someone like her pulling out a domain expansion. Not that he couldn't handle it, it was just that it would be a nuisance. So right as Yorozu blitzed Yuji and she got close enough before she could even attack, she would catch a heavy kick right to her stomach. And Yuji would put everything he had behind this kick. He not only used his full strength, but he also chocked it full of cursed energy, and he even added a black flash to the end of it. He hit her with absolutely everything he had, physically at least, in attempts to put her down in one blow. Yorozu would be sent tumbling back, cratering into the ground. But to Yuji's surprise, Yorozu would sit up on her knees as the armor around her stomach would break and fall off. She would even cough up blood, as surprisingly enough, she had survived the kick that was dealt out to her, although it did do damage to her. Yorozu would slowly get up as she would repair her armor with her curse technique. Yuji would now understand that her curse technique was construction. He would also know that this curse technique was severely draining. So she only had a couple more uses of it before she was out. Yuji would look back at Toji as Toji was recovering from getting punched in the jaw. And now Yuji had landed a black flash, he would begin to enter the flow state. His brain would begin to race as he would begin to take in every little piece of information, and he would begin to piece everything together about this battle. Toji had zero cursed energy, but Yuji had had multiple conversations with Gojo, and Gojo hinted that people could be born without cursed energy and still be incredibly strong. And this is because of heavenly restriction. Gojo used Maki as an example, and he also hinted at someone else in the past, but he never mentioned his name. He's obviously talking about Toji, though. Yuji would understand that Toji was extremely experienced with fighting, and he was extremely fast as well, and he lacked cursed energy. But despite all of this, Toji was inferior to Yuji in every manner. Toji was not as fast or as strong as Yuji, and he was way less experienced with combat than him. And he had zero cursed energy and no cursed technique to make up for his inferiority in terms of physical capabilities. But the weapon Toji was using was making things a bit complicated. Yuji would use his advanced perception of cursed energy that was granted to him by his Rinnegan, and he would see that when his cursed rod and the cursed tool clashed, the cursed tool attacked the structure of his cursed rod. The structure of it was made by cursed energy. That is how the cursed rod was able to break so easily. So Yuji would make the assumption that the cursed tool that Toji was using had the ability to cancel out cursed energy, therefore cancel out cursed techniques. And Yuji's assumption was obviously correct. As then Yuji would plant his hand on the ground and he would use the animal path to summon a giant dog with Rinnegan eyes. As this dog would begin to rush toward the Yorozu, who was just barely getting back onto her feet. As then Yuji would turn and he would shoot 2 rockets from his modified arm toward Toji. Yuji's Shikigami, or his summoning, would begin to pummel Yorozu as she was not prepared for this. But while that was happening, Toji would just narrowly dodge the 2 rockets that were shot at him. But this was merely a distraction as Yuji was blitzing toward Toji. As he would catch Toji off guard, he would begin to engage him in hand-to-hand combat and he would start to dominate Toji. As using a cursed energy based attack against Toji was kinda pointless considering he had the inverted Spear of Heaven. But back with Yorozu, she would get her footing back and she would get out of the way of the giant Shikigami dog. As then she would have to use her cursed technique to create 2 blades, stabbing one of the blades into the back of the Shikigami and one into the head of it. This would not kill the Shikigami as it was immortal, but it would restrain it. But now Yorozu was cutting it extremely close as she only had enough cursed energy left for 2 more attacks. And with these 2 attacks, she would definitely kill Yuji, she just needed to get the jump on him. But back with Toji and Yuji, Toji would try to stab Yuji, and this is what he was waiting for. Yuji would bring his hand up as his hand would meet the blade, and the blade would be shattered. Toji would look down at the now broken inverted Spear of Heaven, as he would be grabbed by his wrist and he would be slung behind Yuji. And at this very same time, Yorozu was blitzing behind Yuji. As then suddenly, Toji would slam into Yorozu as they were both in one spot. As then Yuji would raise his hand up and he would say, "Now be gone." Yuji would flick his finger as a small white orb would be shot from his finger and he would say, "Almighty Erase." And Almighty Erase is a lot like Universal Collapse. It is a small condensed version of Almighty Push, much like how Universal Collapse is a small condensed version of Universal Pull. And with that said, since it is so condensed, it is much more powerful than its original counterpart. So as this glowing white orb would hit Toji and Yorozu, as they were right together, Toji would immediately perish. As you can think of this attack as a reversal red on methamphetamine. I'll put it into perspective for you. Imagine the almighty push that was used to destroy Konoha, times it by 10 and condense it down into its smallest point, and that is essentially what Yuji is firing off here. Now this is one extremely powerful blast, but it is not as powerful as God's Impact in which Yuji used on Jogo, which definitely should have one-shotted him. For plot purposes, it did not. Now, this blast was so large, it would make the crater that Yuji made earlier even bigger, and he would force Kashimo to jump out of the way. As the smoke cleared, Yuji would no longer see Toji, as he would know Toji was dead. But miraculously, Yorozu was still alive. Her insect armor was completely blown away, she was missing half of her face, and she had blood leaking from pretty much everywhere. She looks a lot like Sukuna after he got hit by the second hollow purple in 335. Yorozu slowly but surely would bring her hands together as she would begin to form something. She would form the perfect spear. And with the last bit of her cursed energy, she would also begin to summon her domain expansion. But Yuji's Rinnegan would grow cold as he would whisper, "Admirable, but not good enough." As he would form the tiger hand sign and he would summon a 0.1 second domain expansion. Something that only himself or maybe someone like Sukuna could perform. And maybe Gojo if he was in the zone. As for Yuji, he is able to perform this because his manipulation over his domain is absolutely insane, and he's already landed a Black Flash, so he himself is in the zone right now. As within this last month, Yuji has developed his domain even more and perfected it even more. As Yuji would form a extremely small domain within an instant, and he would get both direct hits on her and her domain and her perfect sphere. As these two direct hits was to absorb all the cursed energy, and the other direct hit was to snatch her soul. As with this 0.1 second, her domain and perfect sphere would collapse and be absorbed by Yuji's domain, and Yorozu would fall lifeless to the ground as her soul was taken. As then within that instant, Yuji would get all of Yorozu's memories, and he would begin to piece things together. As from here, Yuji would really peep game and lock in, as he knew he had to do something about the situation at hand. As with Yorozu's memories, Yuji understands what Kenjaku is a bit more. And most of all, he understands how dangerous he is now knowing his plan. And he also knows that he is on campus right now along with two disaster curses and likely Sukuna. And obviously his assumption on Sukuna being revived is obviously correct. So Yuji would be prepared to fight not only Kenjaku but also Sukuna. And also Yuji knows everything about Sukuna as he has had to move his soul into the King of Hell before, so he has all of Sukuna's memories. So he knows how much of a monster Sukuna is, literally and figuratively. Yuji would get ready to run off as he was in search of Kenjaku, but he would be stopped as Kashimo would step in front of him. And at this point in time, Yuji is completely serious and he will stop at nothing to get rid of Sukuna and Kenjaku, so the moment he gets a chance to end this fight, he will end it. And if you're wondering what happened to Megumin, Nobara, and the other third and second years, they were all instructed by Principal Yaga to get off of campus, and this happened the moment that he saw Toji. And no one's going to stop them as Sukuna is watching Itadori closely, and Kenjaku, Dagon, and Hanami are all preparing to seal Gojo. As back over with Kashimo and Yuji, Kashimo would begin to smile as he would sway his arms down below, and his cursed energy would rise. As lightning would begin to shoot from every which way, Kashimo's cursed energy would amp up. Kashimo would rush toward Yuji as he would engage him in hand-to-hand combat. Throwing various punches and kicks toward Yuji, all of them would be countered with no difficulty by Yuji. And right as Kashimo thought he had the upper hand and he could possibly actually land a blow on Yuji, he would get kicked in the chest with so much force it would knock the wind out of him. He would roll backwards as he would stand up, as now he had built enough charge to let off a lightning bolt. He would shoot the lightning bolt toward Yuji, and usually no one can track it because it is too fast. The moment the lightning bolt was let off, though, Yuji's Rinnegan would catch it, and Yuji would put his hand up, absorbing the lightning bolt before it touched him, completely negating Kashimo's instant hit. As now, Kashimo would completely forget all about Sukuna, and he would pop his curse technique, as all of his physical stats were raised and he would be enveloped in this lightning-type armor. Kashimo would form a lightning blast to send at Yuji, but before he could, he would be completely perception blitzed by Yuji, and Yuji would snatch Kashimo up by his head. He would drag Kashimo before snatching his soul, as he would effectively kill Kashimo. And he would get all of his memories, but he wouldn't really get anything useful out of this. All he could say was Kashimo was a very sad and lonely individual as he only lived for strength. As after this, Yuji would make his way to the edge of the forest as he was going after Kenjaku first. but he would be stopped by a barrier. In fact, this barrier was made especially for him. It kept him in, and everyone else could pass through freely. And back over with everyone who was watching the exchange events, such as Gojo, the two principals, Mei Mei, and all of them. They would be making their way outside as they were going to the forest to search for other intruders. But they would also be stopped by a barrier, and everyone except for Gojo could pass through. So Gojo would be left on the inside as he was forced to break the barrier to get to the outside. So Gojo and Yuji were pretty much in the same situation. They were trapped inside and they needed to get rid of the barrier to move on. So at the exact same time, Yuji and Gojo would both shatter the barriers. Right as this happened, the presence of Yuji, Sukuna, Kenjaku, and Gojo would be felt by everyone. Gojo would then catch up with the other sorcerers as he would tell them to also get off of campus as the fight that was about to ensue would be too dangerous for any of them to take part in. As they would all be able to feel the intense malice and strength behind Sukuna's cursed energy and Yuji's, they would take Gojo's word for it as they would rush off campus. Gojo would push forward as suddenly he would stop, as a huge spike of cursed energy would go off in the ground in front of him and the sky would begin to turn black. As Gojo knew this was Yuji's domain expansion, and he knows, regardless if you're an ally of Yuji, if you value your life, you should not step into it. So Gojo would simply stand clear of the domain as he had confidence in Yuji cleaning this all up. As over with Dagon, Hanami, and Kenjaku, the ground underneath them and the sky above them would turn black, as suddenly the King of Hell would rise from the ground beneath them and they would jump out of the way. Its mouth would open and begin to spew purple flames everywhere. As then right behind the King of Hell, a ginormous humanoid figure would begin to form from the shadows. It would even tower over some of the buildings around them. This would be the Ghetto Maza, an addition to Yuji perfecting his domain expansion. As Hanami and Kenjaku knew they were in severe danger as this was Yuji Itadori's domain expansion. Sukuna, who was sitting on top of a building still extremely close to Kenjaku, was also caught in the domain expansion. As then Sukuna, Kenjaku, Dagon, and Hanami would all look up to see Yuji Itadori floating above them. As Kenjaku would begin to panic, as he had underestimated Itadori's growth and strength for a second time, and this in fact would be the last time. But Kenjaku had one last plan, one last stitch of effort to get rid of Yuji Itadori. He would throw the prison realm on the ground as he would call out for Sukuna to help him. Sukuna would hear Kenjaku's cry as he would slowly stand up, almost annoyed, as he would leap from the top of the building. But within a split second, Itadori would vanish from the air. He would appear next to Hanami and he would grab Hanami by their face. As then he would fire off a full-powered almighty push point blank into Hanami's head, blowing Hanami's head off, killing them instantly. As then he would appear next to Dagon, summoning a cursed rod, stabbing and ripping Dagon's head off. As then Sukuna would hit the ground and he would stand up, standing before Kenjaku and Yuji. As then Kenjaku would step behind the prison realm which he had thrown down prior. And Itadori was in range of the prison realm. And Kenjaku would tell Sukuna to restrain Yuji as long as possible, as Kenjaku wanted to try to seal Yuji as he was in the range and Sukuna could maybe hold him down. The only problem was the elimination of all cursed energy. Sukuna could not fight at full power, as he could not use his cursed energy. Yuji would take one good look at the prison realm as then he would press his fingers down, applying as much pressure onto the prison realm as possible with his gravity manipulation. As he would apply thousands upon thousands of tons of pressure onto the prison realm, it would be crushed, destroying. As Kenjaku was pretty much losing his mind at this point. He was losing his mind even more than when Gojo got released from the prison realm. As then the purple flames surrounding all three of them would spark up and Yuji would speed blitz Kenjaku. Kenjaku would try to ready himself, but it was simply too fast, as the top of his head would be ripped off, and Yuji would snatch the brain that resided in Geto's body. As then Yuji would be holding Kenjaku's brain and pretty much his entire being within the palm of his hand. As then he would take Kenjaku's soul and he would crush the brain that was in his hand, killing Kenjaku. As then Yuji would be hit with an overload of information that was even stronger than when he handled Sukuna's soul. As both of his Rinnegan would begin to bleed, he would drop down to his knees as he was exhausted. and the effects of his domain expansion would begin to wear off. As just then, Sukuna got the ability to use cursed energy again. As then Sukuna would extend his hand with the King of Hell still summoned, and he would say, "Back to me." As 3 pieces of Sukuna's soul would fly out of the King of Hell back to him. Sukuna would absorb them using his reverse curse technique to fully rejuvenate himself to his Heian era form. As full power Ryomen Sukuna was truly back. As Yuji would stand back up, as he was still very exhausted, his domain expansion would begin to fade. At this point, he would have taken in all of Kenjaku's memories, and all he could think was Kenjaku was a vile, disgusting creature who deserved to die. But he would also know that Kenjaku was the one who gave birth to him and gave him life. So he would know that he was merely a product of a monster. And Yuji is exhausted because he is facing the backlash of constantly using his Rinnegan abilities at full power. So it's taken a lot out of him. But it's nothing too drastic, as he can still fight perfectly fine and he can use his abilities, but he simply cannot use his domain expansion. As now Sukuna and Yuji would meet face to face. As Sukuna looked fairly unfazed by what happened to Kenjaku, and that's because he is unfazed, he doesn't really care about anyone except himself. And Yuji already knew that because, like I said before, he already knows everything about Sukuna, all his emotions, all his abilities, everything he is capable of. And that is the exact reason he wants to end this fight fast. As if he fights a full-powered Sukuna in his current state, things could go very bad for him. Sukuna could simply outlast him, and this could result in him losing. Yuji's eyes would widen as he would look almost feral, as blood would leak from both of his Rinnegan. Sukuna's maniacal smile would widen, as this was a fight that he was longing for an entire millennia. Sukuna would start off the fight by sending a giant dismantle slash toward Yuji. This slash would be dodged by Yuji, and it would hit a building behind him, cutting it completely in half. But this would pale in comparison of what was about to happen. As then Sukuna would bring his hands together, and he would say Domain Expansion, Malevolent Shrine. As the shrine would be summoned, with Sukuna standing upon it, Sukuna's domain expansion would engulf the entirety of Jujutsu High, as a wave of cleave and dismantle would be let off all throughout the domain expansion, as all of Jujutsu High would be caught in it. But seconds prior, Gojo would have felt this coming, and he would have clasped his hands together and teleported away to the others. We do not need a repeat of what happened in 236. So no one except for Yuji and Sukuna would be on school grounds. And the entirety of the school grounds, Jujutsu High, would be engulfed in cleave and dismantle, destroying everything. The entire forest, all of the buildings, everything was destroyed. As this would now give everyone a good view of this fight. Everyone would see Sukuna as he was standing upon his domain. As they would also see Yuji, who was wiping blood away from his eyes, as he was completely unscathed somehow. As then suddenly the aura around Yuji would drop, as it would be revealed that he used domain amplification. He would apply his domain expansion properties to himself, meaning no cursed energy could get close to him without being absorbed, so all the cleave and dismantle slashes never touched him. But once Yuji would drop his domain amplification, he would blitz towards Sukuna. He would attempt to hit Sukuna with everything he had, but Sukuna would put up 2 out of 4 of his arms and he would block the punch. But since Yuji put everything he had behind this would injure both of Sukuna's arms that he used to block, prompting Sukuna to use reverse curse technique quickly to heal his arms. But while he was doing that, Sukuna would form a mouth on his stomach and he would begin to chant. While 2 of his arms were being healed, he would use his 3rd arm to throw a punch at Yuji, and he would make a hand sign with his 4th arm. Yuji would easily block the punch, but he would be hit with a very powerful dismantle. It would slice him from his shoulder blade all the way down to his stomach. The cut was very deep since it was enhanced and made more powerful by Sukuna's chanting with his 2nd mouth. But Sukuna did not aim for the head, so Yuji would instantly regenerate with his reverse curse technique. As then Sukuna would try to grab and punch Yuji. But Yuji would quickly blast off 2 of Sukuna's arms with an almighty push. As then he would rip off another one of Sukuna's arms. And then on top of that, he would slam a punch into Sukuna's abdomen, punching a hole through his abdomen with a black flash. All of this happened so fast and fluently, Sukuna couldn't even track. As then Yuji would reach up and he would rip off Sukuna's 2nd face. as then he would grab Sukuna by his head and he would begin to take his soul. But Sukuna, using his last remaining arm, would punch Yuji away, as Sukuna's entire life flashed before his eyes. Yuji nearly ended the fight within 1 second. Sukuna would begin to use reverse curse technique, rapidly regenerating his face, his arms, and his abdomen. But before he could fully regenerate, Yuji would fire off a almighty race at him. As this glowing white orb was racing towards Sukuna, he already knew what this did as he saw it used prior on Yorozu and Toji. So he knew he had to avoid getting hit by this at all cost. So he would try to jump out of the way, but suddenly he would feel himself being ripped forward, as Yuji would pull Sukuna forward with a universal pull, and he would pull him right into the glowing white orb. Sukuna would put up his arms as he would brace himself for impact. He would be hit, causing a massive explosion, and this would do heavy damage to him. As the smoke would clear and before Sukuna could recover and begin to heal himself, he would be stabbed in the stomach by a cursed rod. This cursed rod would begin to absorb Sukuna's cursed energy, and it would also cut his flow of cursed energy, stopping him from using reverse curse technique or any attack in general. As once he got stabbed by the cursed rod, he would be punched in his jaw, then his stomach, then his chest, as Yuji would deliver a barrage of full power blows to Sukuna, who at this point could not defend himself after taking a large blow from before. And each time Yuji hit Sukuna, he would absorb a little bit of Sukuna's cursed energy. So with this and the cursed rod, he was slowly draining Sukuna's cursed energy. As with one final blow, he would knock Sukuna back, as Sukuna was extremely damaged at this point, and he was actually going to die, as he could not save himself with reverse curse technique because of the cursed rod. And his cursed energy was sooner or later going to bottom out. As then Yuji would clasp his hands together as he was going to form a God's Impact to kill Sukuna. Sukuna would feel the buildup of cursed energy, and he would suddenly find the energy and the power in one of his hands to pull out the cursed rod. As then Sukuna would quickly use a dismantle to cut off one of Yuji's hands, stopping him from forming the attack. As then he would try to use his reverse curse technique to heal himself, and he would notice that it was very, very slow. As then Yuji would regenerate his hand almost instantly with his reverse curse technique, and he would slam his hand on the ground, summoning a ginormous dog to rush towards Sukuna. Sukuna, who was just barely recovered at this point, would jump out of the way, as then he would turn to his left to see a giant rhino rushing toward him as well. Sukuna could not dodge this, as he would be slammed into and trampled by the rhino. Sukuna would be slowly getting up off the ground, regenerating with the reverse curse technique, as that's all he could do at this point. He could not get an effective hit off on Yuji, and he could only fight defensively, and he was constantly using reverse curse technique. Sukuna would actually feel fear for the first time, and he would come to terms with the fact that he might lose and die. As then suddenly a rocket would be shot at Sukuna, and he would hop out of the way. As by now, two of Sukuna's arms were fully regenerated, as he would say open, and he would raise two of his arms up, forming the flame arrow as he would fire it off toward Yuji. As the flame arrow was coming toward Yuji, Sukuna would bring his hands together as he would prepare for Malevolent Shrine. As the flame arrow was about to hit Yuji, he would smack it out of the way, absorbing it with his hand. As right then and there, Sukuna would cast Malevolent Shrine. As Sukuna had planned for the flame arrow to maybe do something, but if it did not, he would use Malevolent Shrine as a follow-up to get a sure hit off of Yuji. Too bad for Sukuna, Yuji already saw this coming. The second that Sukuna cast Malevolent Shrine, something else would be cast as well. Yuji would bring his two fingers together and he would whisper, "6 paths collide." As enough time had passed and his domain was ready to go again. As in the ground and the sky would be enveloped in shadow as the King of Hell would be summoned along with the Ghetto Maza. As Sukuna's reverse curse technique would stop, he would no longer be able to regenerate, and his shrine and his entire domain would shatter before him. As Yuji would waste no time attacking Sukuna. As curse rods would shoot from the ground below Sukuna, it would stab him in his back and his arms. As then he would be dragged into flames that were spewed from the King of Hell, causing him immense pain. As then Yuji would open up his hand and a purple orb would begin to fly into the sky. As then the ground and all the rubble would begin to pull toward this orb in the sky. The more the orb ascended up, the stronger the gravitational pull got, until eventually it would even pull Sukuna in. as in the purple flames from the King of Hell would begin to engulf the rubble. As it would grow more and more, it would look as if a small flaming planet was formed in the sky. As obviously Yuji has formed a planetary devastation. As in, Yuji would reach up and he would clench his fist as the planetary devastation would explode at its core. As Sukuna would be engulfed in this explosion and he would die. Now with Kenjaku, Sukuna, and pretty much every other antagonist dead at this point, that brings us to the end of What If Itadori Had the Rinnegan. Now I know this What If is going to be coming out a bit late, and also there were a few rough patches here and there. But still, leave your thoughts and opinions on this What If in general in the comments. And also join the Discord and tell me there, or tell me in the comments on a What If that you would like to see. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it, but with all that said, I will catch you guys in the next What If.